Η πιθανή απαγόρευση του TikTok στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες είναι το τελευταίο επεισόδιο μιας σκληρής διαμάχης μεταξύ των δύο μεγαλύτερων δυνάμεων του κόσμου, Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών και Κίνας. Η οικονομική και γεωπολιτική αντιπαράθεση Ουάσιγκτον-Πεκίνου επηρεάζει άμεσα ή έμεσα και τους συμμάχους τους. Πολλοί αναλυτές στη Δύση, για παράδειγμα, υποστηρίζουν ότι η κινεζική πρωτοβουλία «Μία ζώνη, ένας δρόμος», στην οποία μετέχει και η Ελλάδα και από την οποία πρόσφατα αποχώρησε η Ιταλία, είναι μια στρατηγική του Πεκίνου για να εξαπλώσει την επιρροή του σε δεκάδες χώρες του κόσμου. Πρέπει η Ελλάδα να διατηρήσει τη συνεργασία με την Κίνα? Αν ναι, με ποιους όρους και με ποια ατζέντα? Ο επικεφαλής της Γραμματείας της Παγκόσμιας Ένωσης Οργανισμών Βιομηχανικής και Τεχνολογικής Έρευνας, Burrows, που βρέθηκε στο 9ο Οικονομικό Φόρουμ των Δελφών, πιστεύει ότι η Ελλάδα δεν χρειάζεται να διαλέξει πλευρά και μπορεί να υποφεληθεί από τις τεράστιες δυνατότητες που προσφέρει η αγορά της Κίνας.
Relations between China and the US have been going through a crisis. Do you think that will escalate, and will it affect China's relations with Europe as well?
Do I think it will escalate? Well, that's difficult to predict because they're not going to ask me. I hope it won't escalate. I think an opportunity is being missed. And I think in large part, I've said this before, there's a quote that initially came out of economics, but it was applied to generals, that it's very bad to be preparing for the last war rather than the next one. Now, I don't mean a real war, of course, but I'm talking about the Cold War, where the America and its allies basically faced off against the USSR and its allies, and they were both explicitly expansionary systems, right? The USSR made no secret of the fact that it wanted Leninist communism to expand across the world. The Americans make no secret of the fact that they want everybody to follow some model of American democracy. So within that cold conflict, it made sense to have a policy of containment. I think what people miss is that now China is a technology leader in the world. China has never actually been expansionary, never in its 3,000-year history.
Isn't it now?
No, because, I mean, give me an example where China is expansionary. I often say, in fact, I think the Chinese would be quite happy to be left alone to run China.
What
There's
about
this?
What about the initiative One Belt, One Road? Many analysts say that it's a way of exporting Chinese regime, Chinese policy, Chinese influence.
I've lived in China for 5 years, and believe me, I'm not starry-eyed about the Chinese system. It has same sorts of issues as any other government system has. But I've never heard anybody in China suggest that any Western country should follow the Chinese model of leadership. Never.
What about the rest of the world?
In my experience, China is very neutral about that. I have never gotten any sense that they are trying to export their political system. It wouldn't work, right? Just like American-style democracy wouldn't work in China. Each has to find its own way forward. But
so there is prejudice, do you think, against China?
I think the media, of course, want a good story, right? And conflict with China is a good lead, but I don't think anybody is actively promoting that. I think the Belt and Road Initiative is an economic initiative. It's about investment. And what I'd really like to see it to do is actually go one stage further and start investing not just in infrastructure, but in research in countries like Africa. As you know, I'm responsible for the WAITRO Secretariat. We have a lot of African members in WAITRO, and there's a lot of innovation coming out of even the smaller countries in the WAITRO diaspora, if you like, or the global innovation family, as we call it. When I go to small African research organizations, you always find what I call pearls of innovation. Right? And just like a pearl in an oyster is produced as a result of an irritation in the oyster, pearls of innovation are produced in response to local challenges of water, of having no grid-connected power. WAITRO's job is to connect these pearls together into something of greater value and beauty.
Greece is also part of the One Belt, One Road initiative.
Yep.
Do you think it should keep it like this way, contrary to Italy, for example, which opted to get out of it? And if it should, why?
I think it should, because there's great mutual benefit in each country's innovation being applied to the other's market. I mean, there's one area that's of great concern to the politicians now, which is Chinese electric vehicles, right? There's a panic that Chinese EVs are going to take over the market and put the European countries out of business. Now, those of us who are old enough and have the grey beard, you know, can remember the 1970s when the last panic was going on, that it was the Japanese car market that was going to put all the Europeans out of business. It never happened. But it's true that Chinese EV is a generation ahead of anything that I've seen coming out of Europe. But that has value, because Europe has a goal to be carbon neutral by 2050. That's a very aggressive target, particularly since the EU is a coalition of 28, 27, I forget, what is it this month, sovereign states with their own agendas, right? And if it's going to get anywhere near achieving that goal, it needs the most innovation that it can get. Now, on the other hand, China's not ahead in everything. There are areas like building technology, for example, where China could really benefit from the innovation that's already gone on, particularly in the northern European countries, where apartments and houses are sealed up tight and much more energy efficient than anything you will find in China. But I made a comment in the panel session that we just did, and I've said this many times, that innovation is necessary to achieve sustainability. But innovation never achieves impact unless it's connected to a market. Connecting Chinese EVs to the European market is actually an opportunity, not a threat. They're not going to put BMW and Volkswagen out of business, just like the Japanese didn't 30 years ago.
And you think Greece can play a role in that?
Absolutely. I've seen excellent research, for example, coming out of the Fourth Institute, which happens to be just down the road from my house also. I've worked to help a spin-out company out of there that has a new technology. It's beautiful. It's a powder that you can incorporate in a paint. You can paint it on the walls, and it's photocatalytic, just with room light. What that means is that it takes light, just natural visible light, and it does chemistry on bad chemical species like formaldehyde, like volatile organics, and it cleans the air. That has enormous potential opportunity in China. The Chinese market would be huge. So, again, it's important for innovation to connect to the market.
So you think that Greece doesn't have to pick a side, Europe or China, for example? It can work with both of them.
I would hope so. Of course, it's important to protect your own innovations and to be clear-eyed about patent protection and enforcement. But Greece is, what, 11 million people? You know what the market size of just Shanghai is? Shanghai alone is 26 million people, and we all know that China is about 1.4 billion. But again, it's not the size of the market alone in China, it's the fact that the Chinese system allows it to create markets. Now imagine if a Greek innovative company can tap into that market rather than just being confined to Greece, or the EU is what, 200 million or so, maybe. I don't know the numbers, to be honest. I would say that generally innovation is an opportunity. It shouldn't be a threat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.